I'm Lindsey-Jonkhoff Rogers. Welcome to the Reynolds-Jonkhoff Funeral Home in Traverse City, Michigan. We're a Coast Guard city. We're home to the National Cherry Festival, the Traverse City Film Festival, and we're a true Four Seasons playground. We have ski hills, paddleboarding, canoeing, hiking. We're a wine destination and a craft brew hotspot. So pretty much anything you want to do, it's a great place to live and play. I've always wanted to do this ever since I was 3 or 4 years old. We had our first funeral service that I can remember for a little bird who passed away in our yard. And I always looked up to my dad and thought he had just the coolest job, because everywhere we went, out to dinner, around town, people would come up and give him big hugs. And I thought, my dad's the coolest person. Everywhere we go, he gets a big hug. I want to be just like him. And so that was always my path, and here I am, a 6th generation licensed funeral director. We have my dad, my grandpa, great-grandpa, great-great, and great-great-grandpa, so going back to the 1840s. It actually started in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then my grandpa decided to move the business to Traverse City as part of the 4th generation back in the 70s. Myself, along with my sister, are the first girls in our family to become licensed, and I've been a funeral director for about 10 years now. It's a great profession, and I love being able to help families. Our funeral home was originally the retirement home of Perry Hanna, who was the founder of Traverse City. He was a lumber baron by trade, and he was really a true visionary. He started the first bank, the first mercantile. He helped the state hospital come about, and he built this home as his retirement home. So this home was built in 1891. It took 2 years to construct, and 40 men worked round the clock to complete it at the cost of about $40,000. It's a 14,000 square foot masterpiece that features maple, birch, cherry, mahogany, oak, cedar, you name it. All of the wood is just exquisite. He lived here for a few years until he passed away, and he was actually the first one to ever have a funeral here. It was his own funeral, as home funerals were popular when he passed away. And then it went to his son, who unfortunately died just a year later, so it went to his wife, and she was the caretaker and lived in it for about 30 years. And then, because it was such a big home, contemplated just getting rid of it and eventually decided on donating it to the American Legion. Thankfully, they preserved it, and it later became a funeral home in 1937. It had a few different owners. One of those was Mr. Reynolds. He sold to Mr. Hanson, and then my grandparents actually bought it in 1976. And they had always just kept the Reynolds kind of for continuity's sake. And we're really lucky to call it our funeral home. Some of the unique features of the building include the fireplaces. There are 10. 8 of them have never been used. They all have beautiful carvings. For example, in the library, the wood is cherry, and cherries are actually carved into the mantle. It's really about the little details that kind of make this building stand out. The stairway, it was actually the 3rd rendition, and it's a really beautiful statement that you first see when you walk into the home. It features double spindles made of oak, and it has a Romeo and Juliet balcony. Most of the ceilings in the building are curved, which not only is it beautiful, but it also helps with air circulation. Perry Hanna was really a pioneer and ahead of his time. He has a skylight that not only goes from the roof to the attic, but also onto the 2nd floor, and it also goes to the 1st floor. So it really provides this glorious light that illuminates the whole building. He had all of the chandeliers piped for both gas and electricity, because he didn't know if this new thing called electricity would actually take off or not. The front entry foyer is another work of art. All of the glass is from Tiffany in New York. All of the doors still work amazingly, but they're also spliced together with the correct wood. So for example, if they split a room where one's cherry and one's oak, on each room, if it's cherry, that door side is cherry, and on the other side of the door is oak. So that way, no matter what room you're in, it's the correct type of wood, which I can't imagine, with no power tools, how that was even possible back in the 1800s. And you think, why would you make a door hinge beautiful when half the time it's closed and you don't even see it? But it's about all of the little touches to make it beautiful. The attic is a magical place. Originally, Perry Hanna had a vision for it to be a grand ballroom. It was never finished. He was in his upper 60s when he was building it. So he said, okay, enough, let's just live in the home. I really wish he would have finished it just because I can't imagine what vision he had for it. All of the wood that you can see, it's kind of like you can see the framework of the home, and there's chimneys that are going through it. There's this humongous skylight that goes right through it. Today, it's one of the favorite places on tours. One open house, we had over 30 Christmas trees, so now the attic has become a really cool way to display the trees all year round. The gardens are an extension of our home, and we're lucky to host a lot of services out there, and parties or gatherings or open houses. Some of the amazing features of the garden include a beautiful oak tree, a ginkgo tree, and an ivy bed, all of which are original features over 100 years old. And my mom, who's a master gardener, has carefully planned basically every other flower in the garden. We're lucky we have something blooming all season long. The gazebo is a little known fact that it actually is an addition to the garden. So it used to be a bell tower on top of Central Grade School. And we offer it to the families that we serve as a unique space for them to be able to celebrate the life of their loved one. Technology is one thing that we've really tried hard to incorporate into this historic home. We certainly didn't want to cut into any of the priceless wood, so we consciously integrated it throughout the home. We've turned closets into offices, and what was a butler's pantry is now another office for a funeral director. Because it was a butler's pantry, still has the original faucets that were used to kind of clean the dishes as a final detail. One of the things that we get asked a lot is for a tour of our building. So my mom saw this as an opportunity to write a really cool book. And it's called Perry Hanna's Gifts Then and Now. And it features 100 pages of pictures and detailed descriptions of each and every room. So it's really the ultimate tour. So even if, a room was closed on a tour, you could now look in the book and see the beautiful works of art all throughout the home. We're located right on one of the busiest streets in town for trick-or-treaters. Every year we have over 1,000 trick-or-treaters come through. People love it. They think it's great. They go, we got this candy bar from the funeral home. It's a really cute little fun thing. Just like in our garden or just like in our home where Perry Hanna really focused on special details, we've kind of translated that into our company. And each time we sit down with the family, we talk about their loved one and talk about their interests and their hobbies and try and figure out something special that we could incorporate into their service or their visitation or their gathering. One time I was sitting down with a farmer's family, and they had shared that just before he died, he received a bunch of pumpkin seeds, and they thought, we don't want to plant all these pumpkin seeds. And we made this suggestion to bring them in and we'll pass them out to everyone. And we got little envelopes and made stickers that said please plant in Mr. Beck's memory, and it made everyone who came smile. And every time I've talked to the family since, they've thanked me and said, that was a really cool tribute, and Dad's legacy really lives on. We are Coast Guard City, and a few years ago we had a captain who had passed away, and we thought, how cool would it be if we had a flyover from the Coast Guard? And we didn't tell the family because we didn't know if we, could pull it off or if the weather would be just right, but all the stars aligned, and at the end of the service we gathered outside on the front porch, and the helicopter did 2 passes over the funeral home. One of the passengers of the helicopter was able to do a salute to all of us, and I think the fact that it was a surprise for the family was really cool too, because they weren't expecting it. They were totally blown away and thought it was a really cool tribute. I guarantee they haven't forgot it either. Hannah Bear, the little teddy bear that I'm holding here, was a gift that we would give to little ones at the time when their loved one passed away as a little keepsake for them to hold on to. We'd also have it at visitations or at services. It served as an inspiration to me and my mom, and together in 2015 wrote a coloring book called Hannah Bear, and Hannah's kind of a play on Perry Hanna, who built our building. I wanted to create something that was really simple but also helpful, and so it's just a little coloring book for children and their parents or their grandparents, and it's also been really helpful for folks with special needs. I've been able to offer it to other funeral homes around the country. They've turned it into a different name, but the book is the same and the concept is the same. This was our way of helping explaining cremation, what's a cemetery, what grief is. Those are all kind of big concepts. You know, it's a little tool, but it's just that gesture to start the grieving process for children, because children grieve just like adults grieve. We have a saying around here, always stay ahead of the airplane. My dad kind of came up with it. He's been a pilot for 40 years, and as a pilot, you have to know what weather you're gonna face, know how long the runway is, make sure you've got enough fuel on board. And he was kind of in a training mode, and he said, you know, stay ahead of the airplane. And we all look at him and we're like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, with the service, you've got to be prepared. You've got to know where the family's gonna sit. Do you know who the pallbearers are? Do you know if you have enough food? You know, it's all these different variables, because this is such a big life event that you need to be prepared for, so that way it can be really special for the family. My parents, Dan and Peg, are the current owners of the funeral home. They really have enabled us to have a great work-life balance. We average about 38 to 40 hours a week for all of our work family, and I really think that has enabled us to keep a really strong core. We had one funeral director for 40 years, and another one is coming up on 30 years with the company. It's really great. We're able to attract new hires. One of our newest funeral directors had offers from 10 other funeral homes, and he chose to come here, and I really think it's partially because we place such a high emphasis on having a good work-life balance. And we know that if they're having a wonderful life at home, they're gonna be even better funeral directors and better able to serve the families that we're blessed to be able to help. Thanks, Funeral Cribs. Stay tuned for the next episode.